I got to tell you, Dane, it's surreal being back with you on Zoom, considering we just spent the week together. But I very much felt like we were ships passing in the night. Like we had dinner together, we had a couple conversations over the course of the week, but by and large, you are the busiest man in Indianapolis with all the people that require your attention. And I'm trying to do the athletic football show things. I've got shows with Robert and Derek. We're talking like free agency and stuff, whereas you're 100% draft all the time. So it's kind of surreal being back with you after the different rhythms of our combine week.
Yeah, it's funny how well, first of all, the week just flies. Like I don't know. I was there for 8 days, and I don't know. You blink and it's over. It's kind of crazy. There's just so much to do throughout the week that it just feels like it goes by really fast. But there's so much to learn, and I feel like we did just that. We learned a lot. Whether it's from the interviews, whether it was from getting some tidbits from just talking to scouts and agents and coaches. Obviously, on-field stuff. There's plenty to get from what we saw out there. So yeah, let's try to condense it into a tidy little wrap-up as best we can.
We can definitely do that. Before we dive into the prospects, the names, the drills, the groups that were really impressive, maybe just some notes on the actual workouts and the week that was, which I don't expect anybody in the NFL to care about my advice. This week, and it's been this way for a while, right? But I felt such a disconnect between the fact that we descend on Indy on Monday into Tuesday morning, and then you wait around until Thursday for all of the actual drills to get going. It feels very anticlimactic when people are leaving town just as the workouts are getting going. And then we probably didn't give this enough time prior to the combine, Dane. Maybe it was the wishful thinking in me. I was hoping for better, but my big impression coming out of this, other than a dozen impressive names, is nobody's doing anything, man. Like there's nowhere near as much to get excited about coming out of this combine when you look and see the huge number of guys that just didn't participate in things or picked and chose what they participated in. I mean, the 3-cone as a drill that the league does at the combine is on life support coming out of this. And I think, not to put a damper on the excitement of the combine, but my big takeaway after 4 days of watching drills was like, man, the league's got to come up with a creative way to get the participation in this stuff back up if they can.
It was literally the fastest, just using the 40-yard dash data, the fastest for every single position we've ever seen at the combine, except for quarterback. It was second fastest. And the main reason for that is because the guys that can't run didn't run, but the guys that could run did run, and they ran fast. And so if you eliminate the guys that don't run great, it just pushes the average up. And so, yeah, the 3-cone is my favorite drill by far. Just the change of direction and the ability to the short area, not just to get off, the short area quickness and the ability to finish. Like that is something that translates to every position. And it's something that I think translates well to the football field. And it's not something, you see 4 guys at this position do it, 5 guys at this position. We just don't see a high participation rate. I think only 1 running back did it. So it's just, and we've been trending that way for a while now. It's just this year felt like a big jump in terms of and not in a good way, towards a lot of guys not participating. But, scouts, teams pay attention to this stuff. So, I'm not going to call anybody out, but it's like you hear a lot of prospects. It's funny. You listen to these interviews, and they stand up there at the podium and say, "Yeah, man, I'll die for my team out there. I'm a dog. I want to compete." Then they don't do anything, and it's like, all right, I get it. Your agent probably told you not to. You weren't getting the times you wanted. Wait till the pro day. Blah blah blah. But like, come on, you're gonna tell me, stand up there and tell me you're a competitor and not compete? Kind of weak. But there were, even with that context, I think there were a lot of athletes that went out there and did compete and helped themselves because they were really impressive.
So I got to shout out my guy, Justice Mosqueda, who put this on my radar during the course of testing, but he was outlining exactly what you're talking about. Like pre-COVID, you could count on like a 50% participation rate at the 3-cone across all positions. I got the idea to go look specifically at defensive line players because that's what I care the most about. In 2017, Dane, 37 of 50 D linemen invited to the combine ran the 3-cone. That's like 75% of prospects. This week, 11% of defensive linemen ran the 3-cone. Seven out of 64 prospects. And it goes down the line. I mean, it's a little bit better, but in 2017, 94% of cornerbacks ran the 40-yard dash. In 2026, it was about 63%. So you got some major discrepancies over the last decade, some major trends going toward doing things at pro day and not running all the drills at the combine. If at all. If at all.
And I mean, look, this is how scouts think and teams think. If you're not doing it, you're hiding something. That's 100% how teams think. And so you better be very confident in where you stand as a prospect, or just be confident you're going to put in a good time at the pro day. Because if not, that's something that ultimately not going to say it's going to drop you in the draft, but if it's a conversation between you and another player, who knows? Maybe that could be a tiebreaker for a team. It's another data point that's missing that's pretty important to teams.
I did say prior to going to Indy that I was going to try not to hold it against guys for not working out. I was just going to be disappointed. But yeah, I was disappointed at the lack of drama, at the lack of data coming out of this. But all right, having whined for a few minutes, let's talk about what actually happened at the combine. I took my notes in order of position groups that went. So like the D linemen went first, and we moved on to the DBs and the receivers. So it's not in your traditional order. I just went by position that got on the field first. Let's start with defensive linemen. Ironically, we do have to talk about this. The biggest news item that came out of the defensive line, for my money, is a guy that didn't do a whole lot. That would be Rueben Bain. But my goodness, you could feel the shockwaves going around Indianapolis when his official arm measurement of 30 inches and 7/8 came out. And I have no choice but to believe it's going to be a talking point for the rest of the draft process. It's funny. I said this to Mays. Dane, you and I have been talking about his arm length since like October, but there is, I don't know, it feels a little more real when you get a number on it, though. And I'm curious. I know that you have been expecting this for quite some time, but when you have a number on it and people are able to be together in Indianapolis reacting to it, how big of a deal do you think this is for Rueben Bain's draft stock?
Only because it was expected, I guess. I guess it wasn't, I don't know. It was kind of, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, to be honest with you. Just because, like I reported back in, I don't know, November, whenever it was, that scouts had his arm length. They measured him in the fall at 30 3/4. And so it's like, we told people on this podcast, hey, be ready. It's going to be under 31. And so when it came in under 31, I guess I wasn't that surprised, or I wasn't that, I mean, I guess it was a good thing his arm actually grew, an inch or eighth of an inch. So, I mean, every little bit helps. But that's not his game. He's going to be a short arm player. Now, again, I wish he would have done workouts. That was disappointing. We didn't get anything from him. But yeah, I think the edge group as a whole, we've been talking for a long time how deep it is. A lot of guys did compete, and a lot of guys did impress. And are we going to talk about Arvell Reese as part of this group, or do we wait for a linebacker?
I would call him an edge. Yeah, like okay. I would talk about him here.
All right. Well, then he was, if not the most impressive, top 3 in terms of full workout. Both the time drills, the athletic testing, but also the field workout. His field workout was bananas. It was unbelievable. The quickness and violence through the bag drills, the change of direction, the movement skills. He lived up to what I would expect from a player who's number 1 on my board. And, and I would tell you if it didn't, because I trust me, all the guys in my top 10, I'm looking for a reason why you shouldn't be up there. And I want to see you match those high expectations. I thought Arvell Reese he passed with flying colors. He was outstanding. Dane Dennis-Sutton from Penn State, the way he tested was really impressive for a guy that's 256 pounds. Running 6'9", 3-cone was awesome. His jumps, his runs, so that was awesome to see. Malachi Lawrence, he was tremendous with his explosion drills. So yeah, there were several edge rushers outside of the top guys that I thought helped themselves.
Dani Dennis-Sutton, one of 2 edges to do the 3-cone this week in Indy. And yeah, maybe if you know you've got a 6'9" in your bag, maybe you're a little more willing to do it than some other guys. I'm glad you mentioned Lawrence, because you're right. Like, some guys help themselves, and it's fair to point out the field workouts are not a thing you can quantify with a tape measure or a stopwatch as much as the, the 40 and the vert and the broad and all that good stuff. Arvell Reese looked absolutely great, but I'm glad you mentioned Malachi Lawrence, because very tangibly, this guy is listed at 6'4", 253. And Dane, Malachi Lawrence went out there and did a 4.52, a 40 in the vert, and a 10.10 in the broad. And look, I get it. It's the Underwear Olympics. We're not going to overreact, but that comes on the heels of people you and I know and trust in the scouting industry who have been texting us and being like, oh, this guy's the real deal. Malachi Lawrence is a name that's not getting enough love. Like, we were hearing that well before the combine. So for him to show up already knowing that insiders are pretty high on his ability and to put on a circus act like that, I definitely thought he was one of the bigger winners of the entire week.
Yeah, and he was already in my top 100. That came out right after Senior Bowl week, and part of that was seeing him live at Shrine and seeing him perform during the week of practices. And he's not the most bendy guy, and so I don't expect his 3-cone or shuttles to be great, but he is linearly explosive, and that's where you saw the jumps and the get off and the 40-yard dash. And so, just thinking about that Baylor tape and how explosive he was getting to the quarterback, and all of that translated really well to drills. So Lawrence he's already in the top 100, and yeah, you're right. He only helped himself in terms of where he's going to end up on day 2.
Anybody else you want to hit among edges, or can I move on to linebackers?
I think we should mention David Bailey, because again, a player that was already near the top, performed pretty well, and so I think he just kind of checked the boxes. It wasn't like an amazing workout, but it was good for a player who's probably going to end up being a top 7 pick. So that's a really good workout. Ran in the 4.5s. I mean, he was lightning in a bottle for what you would expect from a guy whose forte is get off and burst to the ball.
That's kind of how I felt about our guy, Caleb Banks, too. Like, he worked out. We were looking forward to that. It was not a bad workout by any stretch, but it didn't get me excited to turn the card in the way I was kind of hoping for. Like, maybe I built it up too high in my mind for a guy coming off of a injury-shortened season. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was, like, otherworldly or anything.
Yeah, and the cleat issue was that's not what you want to hear. Keldric Faulk was another one who I expected to be a little bit better. For a guy that has these traits, you just kind of expected to see it more out there on the field. So I think he left me wanting a little bit more. Let's just move inside a defensive tackle. Since you mentioned Banks, so Zane Durant, Penn State. We mentioned Dennis-Sutton. Zane Durant, he was outstanding in terms of the athletic testing. I just wish that you could point me in the direction of where that shows on film. The lack of disruption on his film.
Isn't that your favorite part of this? Is you've watched plenty of a guy's tape, and then this makes you feel like you need to go turn it back on immediately?
And I will, because the combine's one big cross-checking exercise. If something matches up, okay, great. That's what the film said. Matches up with his athletic testing, perfect. If it doesn't, all right, we need to go back. In either way, if a guy tests really well but doesn't show on film, okay, we got to figure that out, or vice versa. And with Durant, and he's a former running back in high school. I think we knew he was going to test pretty well. But this is a guy who had a grand total of 4.5 tackles for loss last year. 4.5. In 12 starts. So, yeah, he has this, he looks really good in shorts. He can move really well. I just wish it translated to more football production. And so I think that while on paper Durant's testing, he should be quote unquote a riser. I'll go back and watch more film just to make sure I'm not wrong by saying this. I just don't think it's going to be as much of a boost for him when you look at the actual football impact.
Can we talk about a guy? Can we do linebacker just so we can just get this out of the way and talk about the guy that I am jumping out of the gym to turn the card in for?
The top 5 pick.
Okay, I'm glad you started there because I want to make life easy on our wonderful producers and the guys and gals who clip the stuff out to put on social media. Dane, in a year where we already know that the top 10 is a little bit lacking in oomph and there's not as much of a sure thing at the premium positions in this draft, talk me out of Sonny Styles as the second overall pick in this draft. Like talk me out of thinking that's not stupid. Like tell me why that's dumb.
No, as soon as Mendoza's off the board, you're on Sonny Styles' watch. I think he goes top 5. It's just a matter of, is it one of the New York teams? Could it be Arizona? Arizona needs a lot of help in a lot of different places, but they also need to get this right. They need to, whether if they feel like that's an edge rusher, if they feel like it's Jeremiyah Love, they feel like it's an offensive lineman, whatever, get it right. And Sonny Styles has one of the highest floors in this draft. There's no such thing as bust proof. Sonny Styles might be the closest thing to bust proof in this draft when you talk about just checking every box. It's the athletic testing, it's the movement skills, it's the way his career has gone in terms of trajectory, getting better and better. And it's also the interview process. No other player, just talking to scouts throughout the week, no other player had more praise from scouts in terms of their interview than Sonny Styles. I mean, we're talking standing up, getting a round of applause. We're talking just raving about this kid from scouts and how those interviews went. And so I'll put all that together, and I think teams are going to look at this and say, yeah, he's an off-ball linebacker, but this guy's different, and we feel like we're getting him on the up. It's not like he reached his ceiling yet. So Sonny Styles did exactly what you would have hoped coming in, and even then some. So he was my number 5 player in the draft coming in, and now I have to really consider if I have him too low.
I couldn't be more impressed for everything that you just said. I mean, the numbers are silly. The measurements are silly. You look at them, and I think you can get in trouble trying to project too much. But with what we know about him as an off-ball linebacker prospect and what you know from just watching his tape, combine that with his measurables and athleticism, and I'm just like, yeah, the right coaching staff could get production out of him as a linebacker, as a guy dropping in coverage, as a pass rusher. Like, I have a hard time thinking he can't do like whatever he wants. And like I said, I know you can get in trouble projecting too much. We've definitely seen guys like that fall short of the freakish expectations before, but I don't know, man. He's so impressive. And you're right. Like, obviously, I'm not part of the team meetings, but the time he spent at the podium with the media was very, very impressive. I found out this week that he's nicknamed Sonny after the character from The Godfather, which is just amazing. Like,
that's in The Beast.
Of course it is, Dane, but I haven't read The Beast yet.
When we're done recording, I will send you the bio I have in The Beast for him. It is probably the longest bio in there. I have it up in front of me. How about he had, coming out of high school, he had Division I basketball offers from Akron, Duquesne, Kent State, Toledo. There's a lot of good stuff in there about how special this guy is.
If I had to guess today, I think Arvell Reese will be the second overall pick in the draft, but
I would agree.
You could easily sway me that it should be Sonny Styles, and if he's not the second pick, then I think it'll be quickly after that. We talked about him before the combine. Shout out Jacob Rodriguez, just balling out.
That?
I felt silly when I was watching his workout for questioning whether he could, put up good numbers, because he blew my expectations away. And he did the 40 vertical broad. He did a 3-cone, 6.9 in the 3-cone, which was a very impressive number.
It's outstanding. Yeah. And
Real quick, Dane, like a quick tangent. Can you, like, for people that are listening to this that maybe aren't knee deep in draft stuff, why is 6'9" a good 3-cone time, and what are people looking for when they do that?
Yeah, and obviously your expectations change on the position and the size of the player, but for people that don't know what the 3-cone is, just think of it as an L with cones, and you have to maneuver. It's you can't be stiff and do the 3-cone with a good time, and so it really helps expose that stiffness, which is why we see a lot of guys not do it. But but that's why it's a good complement to the 40. A 40 shows obvious linear speed and not just get off, but then also can you carry it and can you stretch it out or do you taper off? But then a 3-cone's just a little bit different. Works with a few different muscles. And Rodriguez, we talked after the Senior Bowl, like seeing him up close in person, just the athlete that he is, gave me a new appreciation for him as a football player and as an athlete. And that's why in my top 100 after the Senior Bowl came out, I bumped him up into like the late second round just because I had a new appreciation for him as an athlete. And then coming here to the combine, even more so because of that workout and the way he moved. So yeah, good for Jacob Rodriguez he's crushing the process. Senior Bowl, combine, after what he did as a senior at Texas Tech. Just you can't do the last 6 months any better than Jacob Rodriguez has done. Throw out Jack Kelly too, our BYU linebacker, had a really good workout. So yeah, a couple of linebackers did well for themselves.
Kyle Lewis, I don't think is under anybody's radar anymore either, Dane, if he ever was, after a nice combine for him. All right. Gonna talk some DBs. There's two categories of guys here when I was watching the combine. Your Sonny Styles, your Arvell Reese, your Jacob Rodriguez, guys that we've talked a lot about, who I had an opinion of for right or for wrong heading into the combine. And then there's what I like to call the Dane Special, where I see a guy that I don't know anything about, and I'm like, ooh, I got to get Dane to enlighten me. Back in the day, if you've been with us for a long time, we used to do a segment called Tell Me More. And I'm gonna throughout this show, I'm gonna throw a few names at you. I would love it, after watching cornerback workouts, if you could tell me more about Tacario Davis out of the University of Washington, who ran a 4.41 despite being almost 6'4" with some 34-inch arms dragging down at his ankles. I guess with the amount of time I spent covering the Cowboys and their arm length parameters, I zeroed in on this guy immediately, and I was like, I need Dane to tell me more about Tacario Davis.
That's a tall drink of water right there. You saw those long strides in the 40, right? He could really stride it out. He now, as a prospect, it's a little more inconsistent because the mirror and match isn't always sound. He has a tough time with that sometimes. The length is great, but the play strength is average. So that's an issue. But when you have a guy that's that size with that speed, and so you can attach yourself to receivers, and especially when you're working on the perimeter, yeah, that's something that's going to interest a lot of teams, especially those teams that place a premium on length on the outside. Whether that's the Commanders with Dan Quinn, or you used to think about like the old Seattle teams with what they wanted on the outside. But yeah, Davis is a good one. On the flip side, a guy that doesn't have size, who I thought an outstanding workout, Chandler Rivers from Duke. He was terrific. Avieon Terrell, he didn't run, I don't believe, but that wasn't what got my attention. It was the positional workout. Avieon Terrell was outstanding during drills. You saw the ball skills, you saw the movement skills. Avieon Terrell, he's I think 18th on my top 100, and if anything, it looked like I had him too low, not too high. He was terrific.
I was going to ask you about that. Do you think we, not you and me, but like we as a collective draft community, we talk plenty about Delane and we talk plenty about Jermod McCoy. I'd say we even talk plenty about Colton Hood.
Mm-hmm.
Are we not giving Terrell enough credit or credence for potentially being, I mean, you've got him at 18, so like a top 20 guy, but could he potentially go even higher than that? Like, are we not doing him justice by talking about him on that other level of cornerback prospect?
Well, yeah, and I mean, shame on us if we're not talking about him enough, because that's he's one of these guys that's once you get past the first like 10 picks maybe, like anybody's free game at that point. Anyone in that 11 to 32 range is kind of in play at that point, including Terrell, who I've said it before, even though he didn't have a ton of interceptions, he just has this honey badger aura to him with the way he competes, the way he goes out there and makes plays, even though it doesn't always result in an interception. But the forced incompletions, the forced fumbles, the way that he will hawk down a guy from behind that's not even on his side of the field. Like he just that's the way he competes, and it shows up on every single tape. So Avieon Terrell, I thought was a winner from the combine. My guy Chris Johnson. If I had to, if I had to make a list of five my guys, Chris Johnson, absolutely one of them. San Diego State, a guy we've been talking since September. Had one of the big questions was speed. Could he, as long as he got under that 4.48, man, that was like the magic number, and he did well under that 4.48. Everything else is just, I don't know. I think he checks every box.
Chris Johnson's one of those guys where he did a 4.4 flat twice. And I was like, okay, Mr. Johnson, off you go. Nothing else we really need to see here. And then one more guy I wanted to mention. Obviously, when you run the best time, people are going to be talking about you. Toriano Pride Jr. out of Mizzou. Mm-hmm. Don't know anything about him, but if you can run a 4.32, I'm going to spend some time watching your tape. That's just how it goes.
There are several teams kind of saying the same, where, oh, I did not know you had that in you. And so we thought you were fast. We didn't know you were that fast. And so that's one of those guys that'll be fired up on the tape tomorrow from teams, just kind of making sure we dot those I's, cross those T's, make sure we've got them right with our write-up.
At safety, I don't know who didn't have a nice week at safety. I was so impressed.
Got to start with one guy, though. We got to start with one guy.
Which way do you want to go? Because like Lorenzo Styles ran the 4.27, or is it somebody else?
It's got to be Thieneman.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Dillon Thieneman, man, unbelievable.
I mean, he crushed it, dude. I mean, I know he's been on everybody's radar as a potential first-round pick for a while, but he's one of those guys where all of a sudden it's like, maybe top 15. Like, what are we talking about here?
It's funny because earlier in the week, I was on radio with our buddies at 105.3 The Fan, and they asked the ideal scenario for the Dallas Cowboys at 12-20. And I said, okay, ideal, like maybe not realistic, but ideal. Okay, all right, let's go Sonny Styles at 12, and let's go Dillon Thieneman at 20. And that was before they worked out. Now later. It's like, all right, no chance Sonny's...
Throw that plan in the trash.
I mean, does Thieneman... Hopefully Thieneman's there at 12 for them if they wanted to go that direction, but that might be it, because holy cow, what a workout. The testing was awesome, obviously, but the workout was phenomenal. And it was expected. I mean, he's right now in my top 100. He's 22 or something like that. So, it's not like, again, he's going to get this huge bump because of what he did. It just kind of reinforced that, all right, yeah, he came in as a kind of a mid-first round pick. He's going to leave like that, and there's fewer questions about him than maybe you had going in.
I came away impressed with like half a dozen guys. Like Thieneman for sure.
It's a deep group.
Bud Clark looked the way he was supposed to. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, like his workout wasn't as freaky as maybe I was hoping for, but totally fine. I'm going to take the time to shout out my guy, AJ Haulcy. I thought he looked just incredibly smooth in the on-field stuff. And one more, I'll do another Tell Me More, because this guy was not on my radar at all. But Xavier Nwankpa out of Iowa seemed to have a really nice workout as well.
Yeah, he's another one I'll be going back to. I mean, I had a PFA on him just based on tape. Like, and he was a former 5-star. Like, he came to Iowa with a lot of pub, and I never thought he lived up to it on tape. Like, as a player, you could watch Iowa's defense and never really notice him. That was kind of his issue. I want more of an impact, but I think that he's someone that there's clearly talent there. You just have to figure out, okay, maybe if we use him a little bit different way, or, it's just a matter of making sure we're not just crossing him off the list because he didn't make enough of an impact based on expectations. I also wanted to mention Treydan Stukes, Arizona. It was fantastic. I mean, he's a nickel who, his secondary position is probably as a safety, but I like him best as a nickel. He ran, I think, 4.33. He was outstanding. And the ball skills are fantastic. So Stukes, he was already in the top 100, somewhere in the 70s, but he's someone that's going to make you think about, all right, maybe we need to give him a little bump.
This doesn't even mention Caleb Downs, who was never going to be like a combine warrior. Right. That's not him. But like, I came out of this, I think I already knew it, especially when we did the Senior Bowl and you look at the Senior Bowl roster and there were like 10 exciting safeties on there. And then you watch this weekend, what a year to need a safety. I feel like I don't have a top 100 like you do, but I was just looking at it and I was like, man, there's like 9 guys I would be pumped to draft on Thursday or Friday.
I think I have 10 of them in my top 100.
That sounds about right.
Downs, Thieneman, McNeil Warren, Haulcy, Keontae Scott, Zakee Wheatley, Bud Clark, Genesis Smith, Jalen Kilgore. I mean, yeah, the list goes on and on. Even day 3, there's some guys that, I think are useful players who could maybe even outplay where they're drafted. So it is a good year to need a safety.
All right. Having gushed about safeties, let's move over to the offensive side of the ball. I think you can say a similar thing about this position as we did about Sonny Styles, Dane. There's a guy we've talked a lot about. We knew he was really athletic. We knew he was going to go in the first round, but after watching Kenyon Sadiq do his thing at this combine, and I know, look, athletic testing isn't everything, but if you liked the tape enough to have a first-round grade on him coming into the week, and then you see Kenyon Sadiq post 2 4.4 40s, actually, I think he got to 4.39, excuse me, and then jump out of the gym. I mean, I don't know. What do you think the realistic ceiling is for Kenyon Sadiq? Because it feels like he's at least got a shot to go top 10 with those sorts of numbers next to his tape.
Oh, he's a shot, no question. I mean, it was always if Travis Kelce retires, drop him into that KC offense, or I mean, they were always talking about teams in that 9, 10, 11, 12 range, maybe. Yeah, and that number, I think that 4.39 doesn't do it justice, because I immediately when that happened, I texted some scouts, hey, what'd you have? I heard back from 4 teams. They all had under 4.35. All 4 of them. I mean, it was like 4.32, 4.33, 4.33, 4.44, 4.34. I mean, and yeah, those are hand times, but guess what? That's what teams use. The biggest misnomer is the official combine time, when in reality teams just use their own hand times, and they do that for a lot of reasons. One of the main ones. Can you illustrate why that matters to teams, why they do their own stuff when there's like laser timing at the combine? The main one is so they can have consistency between combine and pro days and other workouts, where it's the same timer, the same setup, and the way you're doing things, the same operation. So that helps limit any trial and error type of deal. So that's the main reason. But I think that we can get caught up a little too much in the quote unquote official. Like, that's a made for TV thing. It really is. But it's kind of what everyone runs with as, okay, this is your official time. Well, that's what you are for life. That's what you'll be known as. Also, Kenyon Sadiq, I think he had the most bench press reps, or second most among tight ends. He had 26. So, I mean, the vert was 43.5, 11.1 broad. The only reason that wasn't first is because Eli Stowers is he's not human. I know that, but I don't know what he is. 45.5 inch vertical for Stowers. I mean, he came into the combine as my tight end 2, but holy cow, like, that is just ridiculous. Sadiq and Stowers were just doing action figure shit all during the entire tight end workout. And yeah, if there was a question about the pecking order, I mean, not that there was any question about Sadiq, but I don't know. That seems to put Stowers pretty firmly on the radar. A couple other guys, What?
Sorry, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
One other tight end I did want to mention, Sam Roush from Stanford, 6'6", 267 pounds. So 267 is very different than 241 or 239, which Sadiq and Stowers. So at that number, 4.70 40-yard dash, 38.5 inch vert, 7.08 3 cone, 25 reps in the bench press, And I need to double check this, but I believe he's one of only 2 players, talking every position, 319 players at the combine, one of only 2 that did every single drill. Bench press, testing, positional stuff, everything. So credit to you, Sam Roush, for being one of those guys.
I'm shocked to hear that the Stanford guy was on top of his game like that. That's
Shocked,
so
I tell
that's
you.
so
Shocked.
surprising. No, I had at least one other guy. Roush was one of mine that I wanted to mention. You've talked about him before. His workout numbers weren't anything mind-boggling, but I thought Jaren Kanak's like on-field stuff, like the drills and stuff, I thought he looked very nice, and he looked like what I thought he was, and I was like, yes, okay, I can do that.
I mean, with what he brings on special teams, like that just kind of, I don't know. Yeah, Kinnick's going to be a day 3 pick at some point and be a long-time special teamer, and then whatever he gives you on offense is just going to be a bonus.
I think that's going to be the question to answer here is like, there's plenty of tight ends you feel good about at a discount. Do you like that as much as you like the idea of Kenyon Sadiq if you need to use a top 15 pick on him? Because that feels like the floor to me. I can't imagine him going too far past the 15th pick, maybe like 18.
18, that's the number I keep coming back to, yeah.
Running back, what a cool moment. And I know look, we overrate these things all the time. They don't necessarily make you a good football player. But the moment that Mike Washington out of Arkansas had after he ran a 4.33 and essentially just broke down in tears because, look, the 40-yard dash might not translate to football ability, but you run that as a running back who already had good tape, who was already considered somebody worth drafting. That's life-changing. Like that's going to change Mike Washington's life, whether it means he gets drafted a round higher or whatever. But it was a really, really cool to see him have that moment after running a blazing 40 time.
I really enjoyed talking to him at the Senior Bowl and then talking to him again in Indy. A really thoughtful guy, just talking about his journey, Buffalo, New Mexico State, then to Arkansas. He's already has his degree, working on his master's. Like his dad's an investigator, mom got a PhD. Like just comes from a really good family, and he's a really thoughtful guy, but also a really big time competitor. And we saw that with the way he go out there, run a 4.33. What he did this past year at Arkansas, what he did at the Senior Bowl, and then what he did at the Combine. It's kind of like, all right, yeah, everything you did the last 6 months, just keep going, boost your draft profile even more. Obviously, we know who the first running back's going to be off the board, but then second, third, fourth running backs drafted, that's up in the air. I think Jadarian Price will be number 2, but Mike Washington is, he came in as my running back 4 for me. He just made a really big argument for running back 3, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if for some teams he's even running back 2. So yeah, credit to Mike Washington.
Pretty good bet if that's how we're talking, that he's a Friday night draft pick, right?
Absolutely has an opportunity because there's just not many running backs that are going to go on day 2, but he's one of 3 or 4 that absolutely could.
Just a really cool moment for him. Really cool to see that. Really cool to see Jeremiyah Love step out and look like Jeremiyah Love. I don't really know what else to say about that.
But he's not going 2, but like you mentioned with Sonny Styles, like how early we need to be talking about him. I mean, Arizona, Tennessee, 3 and 4, they have to take a long look at their roster and say, yeah, we need help at tackle. Yeah, we need help here and there. But could adding an impact running back who helps us as a runner, as a receiver, and just does that, like our version of Bijan Robinson or however you want to quantify it, how does that transform our offense? How does that impact the scoreboard for us? They both those 2 teams need to take a long look at Jeremiyah Love with that 3rd and 4th pick in the draft.
It's going to lead to some interesting conversations because obviously Ashton Jeanty, through no fault of his own, just had a pretty forgettable rookie year because the Raiders were not ready to drop a top 6 running back onto their roster. I can imagine Cardinals and Titans fans saying something similar. I don't know. I think both of those teams are probably better suited to to draft a running back that highly. I understand it if you have trepidation about doing so, but I don't think those are like apples to apples comparisons, or at least I don't think they will be by the time free agency's over.
Then that's the key, because the Titans have plenty of money to spend. Let's see how they attack free agency, and then we can revisit. Because, and the last thing I'll say about it, I don't want to hear about position value. I don't. I want to hear about impact value. To me, that's the more important way to frame the conversation. Not the position, but the impact that player makes. What is the value to us? And that's something that I think all those teams need to consider.
I'll bet you whatever. I feel very comfortable saying Jeremiyah Love won't be there anymore when the Chiefs are done picking at 9. Like, he'll be a top 9 pick in this draft.
I don't think he pass the Saints. I mean,
yeah, no, I think the Saints would be a very likely landing spot too. But if for some reason, if for some reason the Saints opt elsewhere, I think the Chiefs are the floor for Jeremiyah Love. I don't buy he falls any further than that. Anything else on running back? It's not a position unless you run a crazy 40 like Mike Washington did.
Right.
I'm not easily moved by what running backs do at the combine. Sue me.
Yeah, those are the two names I wrote down that I wanted to talk about. So yeah.
Let's talk about another silly season sort of thing. Actually, Dane, we kind of nailed it. Because we were talking about Carnell Tate's 40 before the combine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we set the over-under at like 4.54, and that's exactly what he ran. Or maybe they cut 100th off and gave him a 4.53, but he was right where we were talking about, which unfortunately for him is a little on the slow side. Or is it? I mean, if we're talking about like a top 12 pick at receiver, I guess it's a little on the slow side, but I'm going to guess you're not putting too much stock in this.
No, because he's not a burner. I mean, that's not who he is. Now, those long strides, they eat up grass, and he makes plays down the field. I mean, some of the hand times were better, which I know Adam Schefter tweeted it. Like that's true about every player almost. So I'm not worried about it. But obviously, you would have liked to see a better time, but I don't think it's something that's going to hurt him. Teams aren't going to, we're going to drop him around. I mean, it's better that he went out there and ran as opposed to Makai Lemon, who said he's the most competitive player in the draft and then didn't work out. And so it's like, okay, I mean, it's, and Lemon's a guy that's a 4.5 athlete. So, no, it's not going to hurt Tate. And especially when we didn't see Lemon work out. We didn't see, obviously Tyson work out. Denzel Boston said he was going to do everything and then didn't run. That was a little surprising. Casey Concepcion didn't run. So a lot of the guys we think are going to go in the first round didn't run, and Tate went out and did, and he's going to get points for that. Whether he should or shouldn't, he's going to.
Speaking of making bets, I'll also bet you $5 he'll run again in Columbus and get like a 4.51. And I'm just not. You can't convince me to care about this.
Ohio State's got a really fast track, so I bet you they'll mark it off at 38.5 yards.
Yeah, hey, mark it off at 38.5 and get us to 4.49, and we don't ever have to talk about this again. I don't care.
Yeah, I think that'll happen for sure. But yeah, there's a lot of receivers. I mean, I mentioned Casey Concepcion didn't run the 40, but I thought he looked awesome during the gauntlet. Like, for a guy where you had more drops than you want, ideally for a first-round player, he was fantastic going through the gauntlet. Germie Bernard, and how about his 3-cone? I think best in the of this draft class, 6'7" at 206 pounds, which, he's not in terms of pure speed, not going to blow anybody away, but that change of direction was really impressive. I thought Zach Branch was terrific because we talked about his screen merchant and a guy that just lived underneath. So how would he do down the field? I thought he tracked the ball really well. I thought Zach Branch had a tremendous workout. Bryce Lance, Trey's little brother, 6'3", 204, went out there, ran a 4.34 in the 40, 41.5-inch vert, 11.1 broad. He did the agilities too. He was, I think, 7.0, 7 flat in the 3-cone, which is fantastic for anybody, but especially a guy that his size. So Bryce Lance, he was already in the top 100, but he only helped himself. Dejon Stribling from Ole Miss, a good size athlete, and ran 4.36 at 207 pounds. That was awesome. who else?
Can I
Malachi.
tell you? Can I tell you one more? I want to see if you thought the same thing. I love just throwing my dumb opinions at you to see if I'm onto something. So I've known about this guy. We've talked about him. And I don't, probably because his teammate is one of the top receivers in the class. He's just sort of been out of sight, out of mind, or like in the background for me. You know who blew me away? Jacoby Lane. He goes up at 6'4", 200 and posts a 4.47 with a 40-inch vert. And more so than that, I just thought in all of the on-field drills, the gauntlet, working on air with the quarterbacks, I just thought he looked so smooth, and his footwork and body control were very, very impressive. Like I said, I've watched USC plenty over the last 6 months, and I knew who he was, but watching him at the combine just gave me a completely different impression of what he might be, and it made me want to go watch 3 or 4 games.
I struggle with him quite a bit because I agree. I was impressed with his workout. I also think a lot of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan don't show up in those type of drills. Like, just very underwhelming play strength, gets pushed around a lot. Very predictable route runner. He's very upright in his routes, gives corners a big target. So like a lot of the reasons why I have my concerns with him translating, at least as a top 100 type draft pick, didn't show up in these drills, but credit to him for performing at a high level where he could. And, for a guy that's tall, slender, a really flexible mover, I thought he helped himself, no doubt. I think the bigger thing, even more so than that, the interviews. And I haven't got any feedback on the interview process, but that's something that I know scouts more concerned with how his interviews would go than anything on the field, put it that way. So I'm eager to get some feedback on how those went.
This is why we come to you, Dane. Real quick, we're probably going long on receiver. We mentioned Deion Burks. He dominated the combine. That's not surprising at all.
Right.
The guy that I want to just very quickly mention, Jeff Caldwell out of Cincinnati, basically had all the same numbers as Deion Burks, despite being 7 inches taller and 40 pounds heavier. I mean, you run a 4.31 with like a 40-something inch vert at 6'5", 216. I know it doesn't mean you're a good football player, but you're going to pop up on the radar doing that.
Yeah, and he wasn't, like, that wasn't expected, that 40. Like, he looks like a 4.4 guy on tape. But for him to go out there and do that was really impressive, especially for a guy that I don't think is a lock draft pick before he ran that time. Because, more of a body catcher. The speed was more of like a build-up speed. But man, once he gets going, if he has a strong start out of the gate, he builds that up so quickly. The acceleration is so impressive with those long strides. Yeah, I mean, while I think he was more of a borderline draft pick going into the week, he's going to get drafted now, and that's an example of where running that 40 and testing like he did certainly going to help your case.
Shameless self-serving plug. Zavion Thomas, one more guy who just had a ridiculous 40-yard dash.
Former Mississippi State great.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. His tape is like he's not just a fast guy, put it that way. I think he's a pretty good football player.
Yeah, and I enjoyed talking to him. He's another very thoughtful guy. Just thinking about his answers and all that kind of stuff, telling me how he just remembered playing catch with his dad in the backyard at 5 years old and stuff like that. So that was cool. I wanted to mention Malachi Fields, who didn't run great. He had that 4.61 in the 40, but went out in the 3-cone and at 218 pounds ran 6.98. Only 8 players in this draft class at the combine, 319 players, only 8 ran a 3-cone under 7 seconds, and Malachi Fields was one of them. So credit to him for that.
No surprise we spend this much time on the receivers because there's a million of them every year, and half of them are going to be good NFL players. I love this is a show for the nerds because we're just burying quarterback like at the very end of the show. But I think that's fair because if we're rewriting what we think of quarterbacks based on the combine, I don't think we're doing this the right way.
There's not a lot to talk about.
You know what? I was excited's not the right word, but I was happy with the quarterback workouts. I was very happy that Drew Aller was able to do stuff. I thought Nussmeier looked fine. I thought Ty Simpson showed off his arm strength and had some, I hesitate to even call them nice throws because what are we even doing? But like Ty Simpson, I thought his arm just looked very live.
Yes.
Taylen Green is an athletic freak. I don't know what that means for his draft stock, but just absolutely silly numbers. And then my last note was that Cole Payton is freaking jacked, dude. So I had a good time watching the quarterback workouts, even if they don't mean that much at the end of the day.
You see those. Remember, we talked about how before the season he was a tight end convert. Like, you
Yeah.
see why. Like,
Yeah,
right?
I sure do.
Yeah, I think that now his workout was kind of like the Senior Bowl, where the ball comes off his hand really well, but the sprays are just all over the place, and it's just he's so raw that I personally, I couldn't draft him before the 4th round, but that's just me. I mean, I think some other teams would probably be a little more optimistic. Ty Simpson was, I think, clearly the most impressive of the quarterbacks, throwing the football really clean, mechanically. The accuracy was good. I think it was Ty Simpson and then everybody else. And, Drew Aller, I thought, yeah, it was good just to see him out there. Big arm, showed it off. Wasn't perfect, but certainly good enough. A couple of, you mentioned Taylen Green with the 4.36 40, the 43.5-inch vert, awesome. Haynes King, 6.89 3-cone, fantastic. 4.46 40-yard dash, which is awesome. And then I give Carson Beck a hard time, but man, he didn't deserve to be booed. Like, that was weak. That was like, I get it if it's like a Michigan Ohio State thing or like, this deep seated rivalry.
Even
Like,
if Miami had beaten Indiana, I would understand it,
right.
but you won the game.
Exactly.
Who
I
cares?
don't know. It was so weird. Like, I don't. Beck didn't deserve that, but to his credit, I don't think it affected him that much.
That was like, no, I mean, I completely get it if like your school's biggest rival, if their quarterback is working out, but like, I just don't understand the animosity for Miami from Hoosier fans, but hey, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I came out of it. I was just like, yeah, I mean, if you're looking for star power outside of Fernando Mendoza, I don't know if this is the quarterback class for you, but there's like 6 guys that I could talk myself into drafting like later on in the draft, whether it's, Nussmeier and Ty Simpson on late like day 2, or whether it's, Drew Aller as a 3rd or 4th round pick is very intriguing to me. I don't care who rolls their eyes about it. Taylen Green as a flyer because of his athletic ability. Haynes King is somebody that I'd be happy to use a day 3 pick on because he's probably going to be more useful to my team over a longer period of time, even if he never starts. Like, I can get excited about quite a few of these guys, even if that doesn't mean they're going to be like longtime NFL starters. All right, let's wrap it up really quickly. This was happening on Sunday, right before we recorded, so it's fitting if this is the one we have the least amount to say. Offensive line workouts. I think my number one impression from this, Dane, is Maxi Iheanacho continuing to just build on climbing into the top of this draft process. I mean, he runs a 4.91 40, which at one point on Sunday was tied for the best. Throw that in with Monroe Freeling. I don't know if his on-field workout was quite as strong, but he certainly has the measurables. At one point Sunday, I haven't updated this, but at one point Sunday, Monroe Freeling was top 5 in 40s among the offensive linemen, top 3 in the vert, top 5 in the broad. So plenty of athletic ability. I feel like those two guys are, we talked about this last week. I don't know if you want to say making a run because they've always been these guys, but I think public perception is catching up to what the league might feel about them, and I'm starting to adjust how high I think they might be drafted.
Well, and the Freeling, he had a 1.71 10-yard split. To put that in perspective, the 3 tackles that were drafted in the top 10 last year were 1.75, 1.74, 1.78. That's Will Campbell, Membu, Kelvin Banks. And Freeling was better than all 3 of those at 1.71. Athleticism is definitely not the issue there. It's just more inexperience. And but if you're looking for that true left tackle skill set, Monroe Freeling's the best in this draft. Spencer Fano was outstanding. Like, his workout today was well above average. The only red flag is that the arm length. It came in at 32 and an eighth, which is shorter than I expected. Just going through the fall, talking to scouts, and they all expected at least 32 and a half, hopefully 33 on a good day. And it was below that. And that's tough. But the couple things that help him, the wing is not as, the arm length is alarmingly low for a tackle. The wing, still not great, but it's over 80 inches, and that's 3 inches longer than Will Campbell's wingspan was. So a little bit of a saving grace there. But then also what Spencer Fano did on the field, it was, if not the best workout of Sunday, top 2, top 3. Not just the 40, which was great, 4.91. The vert was awesome. He had a 7.34 3-cone, which is phenomenal. But then the on-field stuff was even better than that. They had him taking snaps, which is, I think, understandable. Teams want to see him do it just to see what it looks like. Teams are going to be all over the place with Fano. Is he a tackle? Is he a guard? Is he a center? All I know is I want him on my team. This is a first-round player. It's just a matter of feeling confident about where you're going to play him.
Stealing these from our buddy Trevor Sikkema, who does wonderful work for PFF. They're great stats, but Spencer Fano, he measured in the 3rd percentile among tackles for arm length and the 19th percentile among tackles for wingspan. Francis Maui-Noa, another highly regarded offensive tackle coming out of college, 18th percentile among tackles for arm length, 26th percentile wingspan among tackles. So, I mean, we've been talking about this all year, particularly as it pertains to Maui-Noa. You got to get your arms around that. You got to decide if you're comfortable with it. I'm curious how Will Campbell affects these guys and the irony is Will Campbell was perfectly good for the vast majority of his rookie season, but those flaws were laid bare in a big way in the postseason. And so our team's going to be willing to turn around and use a big time pick on a smaller offensive tackle, or if they're viewed as a guard, how does that affect their stock? I think that's going to be very fun to see play out.
A couple other numbers from these offensive line group. Kadyn Proctor, 32.5-inch vert, which I don't know, but that might be the best vertical ever for a guy over 350 pounds. Just an unreal number. And it was kind of expected, but still, when you see it, it's amazing. That lower body power that he has is unbelievable. I think Emmanuel Pregnon having a 35-inch vert was big. Brandon Thorne just texted me and said Parker Brailsford 9'10" broad might be you think that might be a record among centers, which is obviously saying something. Keelan Rutledge had a really good workout. He had the best short shuttle of any offensive lineman at 4.54, which is great to see. And then a couple other guys that really jumped out to me watching the positional workouts. Sam Hesh, the center. Chase Basantis was awesome. Logan Jones from Iowa center, who we didn't see at the combine or at the Senior Bowl, but had a good week here at the combine. Lomu was very good, the other Utah tackle, and then Venga, Penn State, who is one of the best players, just full stop in this draft. So I think everyone we expected to be good, I think was pretty good. A lot of these centers, like this is not like an amazing center class. There might not be a center drafted top 75 this year, but between 76 and 125, 130, we might see 6 or 7 centers drafted. So it's one of those center positions that we don't, or center classes where it's not there isn't a first round guy, it might not even be a second round guy, but the depth of the position is really intriguing with those guys in that late day 2, early day 3 range.
And that doesn't even include Spencer Fano working out at center on Sunday afternoon. So I don't know. Maybe you have to update those rankings.
Maybe. Really happy. I mean, for some teams, sure, it might be.
Really happy you mentioned my guy Bazantis. Demetrius Crown over too. I'm weirdly invested in the A&M offensive line. I think they can play.
Yeah. Trey Zune also had a good week. It's this is a good offensive tackle class, I think. Or offensive line class, period. Even if we're missing the Joe Alt at the top, I think it's still a really good group.
I think that's what I want to impart to people over the next 2 months is like, yes, the top 15 is not the sexiest draft you're ever going to watch, but from there on out, I'm really excited about a lot of the players here. Like I think Friday of this draft is going to be a hell of a lot of fun.
No doubt.
But until then, we got so much more to do. That does it for this week. We've got a lot of free agency content coming your way as the week goes along. Obviously, with the league year starting, free agency is going to dominate the next little bit. But Dane and I will be back next week. We got plenty to talk about. Pro days will be getting underway. We can revisit some guys that work out later, and we got a few more tricks up our sleeve. Until then, we appreciate y'all so much. We will talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching. Follow The Athletic Football Show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube.